There were summer nights when the city seemed to stop breathing. In her old apartment on the top floor, Eleanor tossed and turned, unable to sleep. She was not restless because of the sweltering heat, but because of an invisible anxiety hidden deep in her son's eyes, Daniel. Her son had just returned after a long time studying away from home. The day he walked through that door, Eleanor was extremely happy. She believed that it was an opportunity for mother and son to be close to mend the years of separation. But the joy was short-lived. Daniel smiled, less his eyes were often distant, and in the small house, Eleanor felt a growing distance between the two. One night, Eleanor woke up with a start. A premonition urged her to go to her son's room. The door was ajar, a crack of light shining out like a fragile yellow streak. The mother's heart beat rapidly. She gently pushed the door open, and at that moment, Eleanor accidentally crossed a boundary. A private secret that Daniel kept hidden. Stunned, ashamed, and tormented, Eleanor quietly returned to her room. But that image haunted her endlessly. From that moment on, the relationship between mother and son changed. The meals suddenly became heavier, the awkward looks, the long silences. Eleanor realized that she no longer looked at Daniel with the same eyes as before. And Daniel, he also felt something strange in every gesture, every accidental touch of his mother. Time passed. The silence in the small apartment became more frightening than ever. Eleanor wanted to get closer to her son, but was also afraid of the thoughts that were gradually invading her mind. Every night she wondered, can I still control myself? Is the pure motherly love gradually being tarnished by nameless emotions? One sultry afternoon, Eleanor returned home, tired after a long day of work. When she passed Daniel's room, she caught a glimpse of the door ajar. Her heart urged again, her mind struggled again. In the end, she chose to walk away quietly. But that fleeting image made her mind restless. That night, lying in the dark room, Eleanor was forced to face the truth, that her feelings for Daniel were no longer as pure as before. It was a truth that scared, tormented, and tormented her. Eleanor knew that if she took just one wrong step, everything would collapse: motherhood, family, and herself. Their story gradually became a tragedy, where love, guilt, and loneliness entangled together, with no one finding a way out. Dear friends, this is just the beginning of a journey full of heartache in the soul of a mother and son. Will Eleanor be able to cross that dangerous line? Will Daniel recognize the pain in his mother's eyes? Stay tuned for the next parts. And if you find this story touching your heart, please subscribe to the Love and Tears channel so we can reach our first 100 subscribers soon. Your support is the biggest motivation for us to continue bringing stories that are both haunting and profound. In the following days, the small apartment was still lit every night, but the atmosphere in the house was heavy, as if an invisible stone was pressing down on it. Eleanor tried to live as usual, still cooking, washing, asking about her son. Daniel was still polite, still smiling at his mother. But they both knew that behind that smile was a deep distance that they could not name. There were afternoons when mother and son sat together at the dining table. Eleanor caught Daniel's eyes lingering on her for a moment longer, then quickly looked away. She suddenly realized that there was a strange hesitation in her son's eyes. It was no longer as pure as before. And that made her even more afraid. Eleanor began to pay attention to every gesture she made, the way she dressed, the way she spoke, even the distance when sitting next to Daniel. She tried to act natural, but the more she tried, the more awkward she became. Deep down, she knew that an invisible rift had formed between them, and it was getting harder and harder to mend. One weekend evening, Eleanor decided to break the silence. As they sat watching a movie, she turned to him and said softly, "Daniel, are you happy here with me?" He looked at her in surprise, then smiled awkwardly. "Of course, Mom. Wherever I am is home, as long as you're here." But Eleanor could clearly see that there was a hint of force in her voice. The answer did not really come from the heart. She just nodded slightly, then fell silent. That night, Eleanor tossed and turned. She felt that Daniel was trapped like her. Both were bound by a vague, dangerous emotion. And Eleanor's biggest fear was if one day that secret was discovered by outsiders, what would they have to face? That worry quickly became a reality. One morning, while taking the trash out, Eleanor caught the scrutiny of her neighbor, an elderly woman who was always paying attention to everything around her. That gaze was not simply curious, but also seemed to contain suspicion. Eleanor shivered slightly. Had the changes in this small house been discovered, she quickly turned back, her heart pounding. For the first time, Eleanor realized the secret of mother and son was on the verge of being exposed. Dear friends, the story is gradually taking a dangerous turn. Eleanor and Daniel's secret may no longer be safe. How will they face it when the truth is revealed? If you want to continue following this heart-wrenching journey, please subscribe to the Love and Tears channel so we can soon reach the first 100 subscribers. You are the motivation for us to continue bringing stories that touch the heart. Ever since that morning, Eleanor had always felt uneasy. Every time she accidentally met Mrs. Johnson, the neighbor who lived right across the street, she saw something sharper in her eyes, as if she was examining every little gesture of her and Daniel. On hot afternoons, when Eleanor hung clothes on the balcony, Mrs. Johnson would often lean against the railing on the other side, pretending to chat. But her voice was always off-key, half joking, half serious. Daniel looks so grown up, no longer like a little boy. You two living so close together must be very close, huh? Eleanor heard this and felt a chill down her spine. She forced a smile, answered vaguely, and then hurried back inside. But inside her worry grew more and more. Daniel also noticed the change in his mother. One evening, when they were setting the table, he asked softly, "Mom, is something wrong? I see you've been worried these past few days." Eleanor was embarrassed, only smiling reassuringly. "No, it's nothing. I'm probably just tired." But Daniel looked at his mother longer than usual. In his eyes, Eleanor saw a flash of doubt and sadness. The next day, when Eleanor came home late from work, she was surprised to see Mrs. Johnson standing in front of her house, smiling politely, but her eyes were piercing. "I just met Daniel in the hall. He's very polite, but he seems a bit distant." At that age, boys often hide a lot of secrets, Eleanor. You should keep an eye on him, or You'll regret it. That sentence made Eleanor speechless. Each word fell like a warning. Did Mrs. Johnson know something? Or was it just the intuition of someone too sensitive? That night, Eleanor sat absent-mindedly in the living room, her heart in turmoil. Daniel walked out of his room, looked at her mother for a long time, then sighed softly. "Mom, we can't go on like this forever. I know you're hiding something." The words struck like a thunderbolt, shattering the wall of silence. Eleanor turned her eyes, brimming with tears. Her heart trembled. Was it time to face the truth they had both been avoiding for so long? The living room was bathed in a dim yellow light. The ticking of the clock seemed to emphasize each tense beat. Eleanor sat straight in her chair, her hands clasped tightly together, while Daniel stood just a few steps away from her mother, his eyes both painful and determined. Mom Daniel's voice was hoarse. "I'm not a child anymore. I know something has changed between us. I feel it in every look, every moment of silence. I can't stand this ambiguity anymore." Eleanor pursed her lips, her heart pounding. She wanted to avoid it, to deny it, but her son's eyes seemed to pierce straight into her heart, giving her no way out. "Daniel, you don't understand." She whispered, her voice trembling. "There are things we shouldn't say." Daniel shook his head, taking another step. "No, Mom. It's because I don't say it that I feel suffocated like this. I need the truth, no matter how cruel it is. I need to know what kind of feelings I see from you." Ah, a hot tear fell down Eleanor's cheek. She tried to hold it back, but her son's words seemed to tear apart the shell she had tried to build. "I thought you only loved me as a mother, but in your eyes, there was more to it. Mom, tell me." "I don't want to guess anymore." The room was dead silent. Eleanor covered her face with her hands, her whole body shaking. Finally, through sobs, she let out the words that she herself feared. "You're right. Mom, I've gone too far. My feelings are no longer pure. I know it's wrong. I've tried to deny it, to avoid it. But my heart has betrayed my mind for a long time." Daniel closed his eyes, his hands clenched into fists. When he opened them again, glistening tears were falling. "Why, Mom, why didn't you stop? Do you know this will destroy everything?" Eleanor burst into tears, rushing to grab her hand. I know I blame myself every day, every night. But baby, I can't erase this feeling. It's rooted in my heart like a curse." Daniel looked at his mother, his heart torn between love and panic. Tears welled up, but his voice remained firm. "If we continue like this, only brokenness will remain. Are you ready to end it before everything is exposed?" The question hung in the air like a sharp knife, forcing Eleanor to choose between her heart and her conscience. Eleanor collapsed her shoulders, shaking tears, soaking her skinny hands. Daniel stood there, looking at his mother, his heart heavy as stone. He waited for an answer, for a way out for both of them. In a choked sob, Eleanor raised her face. Her eyes were red, but her gaze was unusually determined. Daniel, I can't let you lose your life just because of this wrong feeling. She choked. I was wrong, I was weak, but I can't let you pay for my mistake. Daniel shook his head, stepped closer, his trembling hands touching his mother's shoulders. But Mom, if we give up, how much pain will we suffer? Eleanor squeezed her son's hand tightly, her eyes glistening with tears. I can bear any pain as long as you escape this vortex. You have to live a meaningful life, have a future, have true happiness, and not be bound by these distorted emotions. The space was suffocating. Daniel wanted to resist, wanted to hold her. But then he saw in Eleanor's eyes an unshakable determination. From now on, Eleanor said, her voice trembling but determined, we have to keep our distance. Mom will learn to control herself, learn to fulfill her duty as a mother. Even if her heart aches, she still has to do the right thing. Daniel bit his lip, hot tears falling. He knew his mother was right, but he also understood that this decision was like tearing both of their souls apart. He hugged his mother, crying and whispering, I understand, but I'm scared, Mom. I'm scared that one day I won't be able to bear it. Eleanor hugged him tightly, her heart aching like 1,000 knives piercing it. If that day comes, remember true love is sometimes not about holding on, but letting go so that the person you love can live their own life. The two hugged each other and cried. In the small house, that cry was both heartbreaking and like a farewell to a love that had not yet blossomed, but had to be buried forever. In the days that followed, the small house was filled with a suffocating silence. Eleanor kept her promise. She avoided close contact, trying to return to being a normal mother. Meals revolved around a few brief greetings. Late at night, the light in her room stayed on for a long time, then went out with a heavy sigh. Daniel on the outside tried to appear calm. He threw himself into books, into his part-time job, as if he was busy enough, the pain would fade. But the more he tried, the more he realized that the void in his heart only grew larger. Every time he accidentally saw his mother in the kitchen, her slender figure made his heart ache. Every time he heard her sigh behind the door, he felt like a sinner, both in love and tormented. One night, when the rain poured down on the city, Daniel woke up with a start. In his dream, he saw himself running in a dark maze, and Eleanor's figure was getting farther and farther away. He jumped up, cold sweat soaking his back. His heart was pounding. He walked out into the hallway. His mother's door was half closed, a small ray of light shining through. Daniel paused. In that moment, so many desires, so many longings seemed to be about to drown out his reason. But then he heard Eleanor whisper softly, God, please give me enough strength to save my son. Daniel stiffened. His throat choked. He understood Eleanor was struggling with the darkness like him. She was in no less pain, but still chose to sacrifice. He turned back, returned to his room, his eyes filled with tears. In the darkness, Daniel whispered to himself, I will try, Mother, but I don't know if I can get out. And from that night, Daniel's sleep was no longer peaceful. The haunting memories of buried love still linger in every dream like a ghost that never leaves. Dear friends, Eleanor chose to sacrifice her feelings to protect her son. But what about Daniel? Can he overcome this haunting memory? Or will he forever be tormented by that forbidden love? Share your thoughts in the comments section. If you were Daniel, would you have the strength to forget? Or would you live forever with a wound that never heals? Autumn came bringing with it gentle winds and the scent of dry leaves in the air. Daniel began a new school year at university. During a class, he happened to meet Clara, a girl with soft brown hair and a warm smile. Clara was unlike anyone else. She spoke softly, but her eyes shone with a rare confidence. She loved listening to Daniel, often encouraging him, and gradually Daniel felt comfortable around her in a way he had never thought possible. One afternoon, as they sat by the lake on campus, Clara asked, "Daniel, why do you always look so sad? It's like there's something holding you back." Daniel was startled. He didn't answer right away, just smiled evasively. But deep down, that question echoed. Clara had seen what he tried to hide. Meanwhile, Eleanor watched her son with a look of both relief and pain. She saw Daniel start to smile. Moore started to have long phone calls with Clara for hours. But instead of feeling reassured, a silent pang crept into her heart. One night, Eleanor looked at herself in the mirror. She saw a woman growing old with wrinkles, gradually becoming more visible. She whispered to herself, "Ah, you are happy. What about me?" In that house between silent meals, Eleanor clearly felt Daniel's feelings were changing direction. But that change did not free her from the darkness. On the contrary, it stirred up a fierce undercurrent in her. At once, relief loss and secret jealousy, and Eleanor began to fear. If one day Daniel accidentally realized this conflict, everything would fall apart again. Dear friends, Clara has appeared as a new light in Daniel's life. But is her love strong enough to help Daniel forget the darkness of the past? And Eleanor, will she accept to let go? Or will her heart pull her back into the forbidden abyss? What do you think will happen next? Will Daniel gradually fall in love with Clara, or will his past with Eleanor resurface when he is weak? Clara grew closer to Daniel. She noticed that every time she mentioned her family especially, her mother Daniel's eyes changed as if a flame had been extinguished halfway. One evening, Daniel invited Clara to his house for dinner. Eleanor prepared a thoughtful meal, a gentle smile on her lips. But her eyes could not hide the tension when she looked at Clara. During the meal, Clara clearly felt a strange wave creeping into the air. The way Eleanor looked at Daniel was not just maternal concern. It carried something deep, hard to name. After dinner, when Eleanor was washing the dishes in the kitchen, Clara gently pulled Daniel out onto the porch. "Daniel is there. Something between you and your mother that I don't know about." Daniel was speechless. His heart was pounding. His breathing was heavy. Part of him wanted to confess everything to free himself. But another part of him was afraid of losing Clara, afraid of ruining Eleanor's image in her eyes. He evaded. "No, It's just that my mother sacrificed a lot. I owe her my life." Clara was silent. Her eyes sparkled, both believing and doubting. But what was surprising was that Eleanor herself, when she vaguely heard the conversation from the kitchen, her trembling hand broke the plate in her hand. The loud crash made Clara startled and looked at it. And in that moment, Clara caught Eleanor's eyes, a look of panic mixed with pleading, as if she was afraid the truth would be exposed. Clara swallowed hard. A terrible suspicion began to rise in her heart. That night, when she got home, Clara couldn't sleep. The image of that gaze kept appearing, swirling in her mind. A vague premonition told her that the connection between Daniel and Eleanor was not simple, and Clara decided to find out the truth. Dear friends, the secret that Eleanor and Daniel tried to hide is gradually being touched by Clara. Will this young girl have enough courage to face the truth? And if Clara discovers everything, will her love for Daniel be broken? Or will it become the key to free them from the forbidden abyss? In your opinion, should Clara continue to investigate, to know clearly? Or should she pretend not to know to protect her love? Clara finally couldn't contain her curiosity. One afternoon, when Daniel was away, she returned to the apartment and accidentally discovered an old diary in Eleanor's drawer. The trembling, tear-stained lines spread across each page. I have crossed the line. This love should not exist. But my heart betrayed my mind, pushing me into the abyss of sin. Daniel, you are both my blood and the one who makes me crave desperately. If this truth is revealed, I am willing to bear all the pain as long as you can continue to live happy, even without me by your side. Clara's hands trembled, tears welled up. The cruel truth was laid out before her eyes. When Daniel returned, Clara looked at him, her eyes filled with pain and pity. Daniel, I already know. Daniel was stunned, tears welled up. He couldn't lie anymore. His heart broke, knowing that from now on, Clara would never look at him the same way again. Eleanor walked in, realizing that it was too late. She fell to her knees, her eyes red. It's my fault. Let me take it all. You're still young, you have to move on. Don't let this love bury you for the rest of your life. Daniel hugged his mother, sobbing. But I don't want to lose you. I don't want to. Eleanor stroked her son's hair, whispering as if saying goodbye. True love is sometimes not about holding on, but about knowing how to let go. The next day, Eleanor left. She left a short letter, wishing Daniel to find true happiness with Clara, and hoping that Clara would forgive the weak woman who had lost her way. Daniel went to Clara. He hugged her tightly, his eyes filled with tears. Promise me we will live a different life, a life without darkness. Clara nodded, but deep down she knew that this wound would never fade. Many years later, Daniel and Clara were still together, but the memory of Eleanor was like an indelible scar. In the quiet nights, Daniel still heard his mother's voice. Knowing how to let go is also a way of loving, and deep down he knew that the greatest love of his life was the love that was never allowed to be called by name. Dear friends, the story ends here. A forbidden love, a mother who chose to leave to save her son, and a scar that would follow them for the rest of their lives. If it were you, do you think Eleanor did the right thing by leaving? Or should she have stayed to face everything with Daniel?